Welcome back to the Rise and Grind Workshop. If you're new here, my name is Ryan, and today we're going to be unboxing and reviewing the Vevor 4-in-1 hat press. You guys must have been screaming really loud because Vevor got the hint and they reached out to us and asked us if we would be interested in doing an unbiased full review on their 3-in-1 hat press. And as many of you know, we do have some nicer hat presses here in the shop, and I get asked on the daily, hey, what do you think of the Vevor hat press? And honestly, I have never used one, so I couldn't give an opinion. Well, that's gonna change today. We're gonna go ahead and get this thing unboxed, set up, and I'm gonna do a full review on this. And just for full transparency, Vevor did send us this hat press for free, and I'm under no obligation to say everything positive. So this is gonna be a raw and completely unbiased review. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. Well, so far we are off to a good start. We got the unit unboxed, no damage, and clearly they did an excellent job shipping, had nice styrofoam packing around the unit, and there's no damage. Now you're gonna notice these little blue platens down here, and that's exactly what these are called. These are called platens, and this is a blue foam material, and these come in a couple different sizes. You'll recall earlier I called this a 4-in-1 hat press. 1, 2, 3, 4. These hats, by different makes and manufacturers, have a different arc, a different shape, and a different crown on the top side. So by having the option of being able to change out those platens based on the type of hat you're using is going to come in very beneficial. This unit has the power cord wrapped up on the handle here. Go ahead and locate that big zip tie and go ahead and clip that. Go ahead and keep some downward pressure on the handle so this thing doesn't just fly up. So if you're new to pressing hats or just heat presses in general, let's quickly go over some of these components. You're gonna notice this ball lever right here, and this has some spring tension on it. Go ahead and press that down or up. There's a screw right here on the side that you'll go ahead and remove. That'll give you full range of motion. Once you have your hat opened up and fed inside of this hat press, that's where this ball lever is going to come in handy. There's a nice shaped wire frame back here, and that's going to keep downward pressure, keeping the front of the hat nice and tight on this platen. Right here is your digital readout. This unit will read in Celsius or Fahrenheit. You're going to be able to adjust your temperature up or down, and right below that, you're also going to be able to adjust the time that you press your hats. You're going to notice this large dial here in the center. You can twist this clockwise or counterclockwise, and that's going to raise this top heated platen up or down. And as you start pressing more hats from different makes and manufacturers, you're going to realize how extremely important this dial is. A couple turns can really make the difference between getting a nice clean hat press or getting a bunch of wrinkles in your hat, or even possibly damaging or melting the hat. So a little bit later in the video, we're going to show you how to get your tension adjusted correctly. Now this unit, as we talked about earlier, did come with 4 different lower platens. Now one thing I do want to point out, these are not heated lower platens like some of the other hat presses on the market. This is only a single platen that has heat, and that's going to be right up here on the top side. Now we've been extremely fortunate enough to use some very nice hat presses here in the shop. One thing I will give you warning, you're going to notice a couple wing nuts on the top here and a couple wing nuts down here on the bottom. Depending on the style hat you press, you will need to go ahead and adjust these up. You're not going to be able to just take this thing right out the box, throw any make of hat in here and get a nice clean press. You're going to literally need to take the hat you want to press, get it over here on this lower platen, and then bring this handle down, and you're going to start checking your alignment. When you loosen these wing nuts up, there's a channel here on both of these that's going to allow you to slide them forward and back. That way you can get your alignment dialed in. Don't skip this part, guys. This is a cheaper platen, and a lot of the complaints you hear about is because people don't understand how this works and they don't take the proper amount of time doing their setup. This material right here is called Leatherette. This is a faux or synthetic leather. This was actually developed and manufactured in China. There are many US distributors. I'll have a link down below who we exclusively use. We also do a lot of UV printing here at the Rise and Grind Workshop. So today I think we're going to go ahead and use this rawhide leatherette that we've UV printed a design on, and we're going to show you how to press a hat. In the meantime, go ahead and locate your power cable and let's get this plugged in, and I'll show you how to get your settings set up. Now, depending on the style hat you're going to press, you might need to change out this lower platen before setup. Go ahead and decompress that ball lever, and you're going to notice this knurled knob on the bottom. Loosen that up, and then you're going to lift up and pull out. You will notice a plastic nipple right here. If you need to change out that platen, you're going to reverse the order of operations. Go ahead and take that nipple, drop that into that channel, and then you're going to slide that forward, and then you will tighten that thumb wheel on the bottom, and then you can let that ball lever go. Now let's go ahead and show you how to calibrate your heat settings. I want you to go ahead and locate the big red power button, turn on your hat press, and on the first column here, you're going to see a big button that says temp. Go ahead and click that one time. You have an up and down arrow key. For today, we would like to set our hat pressing temperature at 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Next up, we need to tell it how long we would like the hat to press. For our application, we're going to hit the time key just below the temperature, and we're going to also use the up and down arrow keys and get to our desired time. We're going to stick with 40 seconds, and you guessed it. Go ahead and hit the time button one more time, and that is locked in not only our temperature, but our time. And lastly, I will cover this because somebody will ask. If you don't want to operate in Fahrenheit, locate the up and down arrow keys on the temperature column, decompress those at the exact same time. The screen will look like so. Go ahead and hit temp one more time, locate your up or down arrow key, and you can change that to Celsius or Fahrenheit and hit temperature one more time. And that is how you toggle between Celsius and Fahrenheit. Very simple. Now I know at this point everybody just wants me to throw a hat in here and press it really quick, but guys, this is the pro tip time. I've pressed a lot of hats and I've laser engraved quite a few patches here in the Rise and Grind workshop, and I have not only answered all of your guys' questions, but I also lurk online, and I have seen a lot of the most common issues with this Vevor hat press. Hopefully if you're listening right now, I'm going to help alleviate some of those growing pains for you. For today's demonstration, we're going to use a Richardson 112 trucker style hat. These are extremely popular hats, but they can also be very difficult to press, not only on the higher end presses, but on these Vevor hat presses. These are known for having a really tall crown. You're going to notice that this platen has a nice arch to it, and the lower platen has that same arch. The problem is this Richardson 112 does not have that same arc pattern, and that oftentimes leads to a lot of wrinkling or damage to the hat. So this right here should give you a very good visual representation of what we've done. That ball lever is putting that downward pressure, and you can see that wireframe is inside of that mesh backing of the hat, and we've got that front part right here on that lower platen. It looks like everything is good to go. Well, let me show you where the problems start to happen. At first sight, this looks really good, but the problem is this. You see how when I press my finger down, you see how there's a big gap between the platen and the hat? That is what causes a lot of issues, and there are many different ways to skin a cat, and I've seen some really creative ways to overcome this issue. However, for today, I'm going to show you a very simple way to address this. Now, I did touch on this earlier in the video. This lower platen does not get hot, so you're not going to have to worry about something sitting here on the lower platen getting hot, melting, or burning, etc. And like I said, there are a lot of creative ways to address that gap issue, such as bean bags and other products on the market. They even make a third-party lower platen you can attach to this that actually plugs in and heats up, converting this to a dual platen. For today, we're going to keep it really simple. I've got some old sheets or rags laying around here in the shop. I'm going to go ahead and just lay these right over the bottom platen here. The whole idea behind this, when you saw me pressing down on that hat and there was that flex inside of it, we were wanting to eliminate that flex. So this is still fairly pliable. It's not going to get damaged by the heat, and that should take out a lot of that spacing, which in return is going to make it less prone to wrinkles or damaging that patch. So you'll notice the Richardson hat is an adjustable snapback. I've made mine pretty wide. That's going to allow this wireframe to fit inside the hat very easily. So what you're going to want to do is hold this wireframe up, and you're going to thread your hat in there and make sure you get it inside of that wireframe, and then you can go ahead and let go of that ball lever. That's naturally going to drop that tension down. Now you can kind of go ahead and play around with it. You got to use both hands. You kind of get the idea of what we're doing here. So now you can see that Richardson hat fits really nice inside of that hat press. The ball lever is keeping that tension on the back side of the mesh area. And now when I press in on this, it is not deforming nearly as much as before. I now feel fairly confident that with our pressure adjusted correctly, we're going to get a nice press without getting a bunch of wrinkles in the hat. Now earlier in the video when we talked about adjusting the top of this platen, take a quick look at the clamshell as I bring this down. That's going to bring this platen forward. You see how we have this adjusted so that the hot platen is not getting up on the bill. If this platen gets up here on the bill, that's going to scorch and burn the hat. You do not want this portion touching your hat. Now remember, what temperature did we set this to? 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Be very careful. The outside of this top platen is very hot, and on the inside here, that is metal. Imagine if you just press this right down onto a leatherette hat patch or some type of a heat transfer patch. You know that metal is just going to burn it up and melt it. A lot of times I see some people using some sort of paper as well. That's just not going to cut the mustard. This is what the pros use, and this is what we highly recommend here. This is a silicone pad, and we happen to use an 1/8 inch silicone pad. This little silicone pad is going to protect the hat, it's going to protect the patch, and it's also going to allow that heat to fully get down inside of that patch to activate that thermal activated adhesive. Earlier in the video, we talked about this tension knob right here. You do not want to bring the clamshell down and test your tension like this because, remember, we still need to put the patch in between that platen on top of the 1/8 inch silicone. So what I want you to do is take your patch, place that on the hat, grab your silicone pad, drop that down inside. This is with the heat off. We have no heat on this. We are simply testing our tension. Go ahead and drop that clamshell down, and you want to give it just a little bit of force until it clicks into place. If you have too much tension, you're going to get a big wrinkle down the seam where the 6-panel hat has that stitching in the middle, or you're going to squeeze the glue out to the sides. So you're going to be walking that fine line of having just the right amount of pressure. The more you do it, the better feel you'll get for it. On some of the other hat presses, they actually have a pressure monitor that you can read on the screen. Speaking of hat patches, this is a UV printed leatherette hat patch. On the back side of it, you can see this is not sticky. This has a thermal activated adhesive. The manufacturer recommends 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's what's going to get this adhesive to activate, and it will actually melt and adhere into the hat with the proper settings. Now, once again, there are many different ways to get your patch aligned and pressed onto the hat, so pick and choose the method you like. I often see a lot of challenges or problems as this clamshell comes down and clamps onto that hat. You're going to see your patch shift or move. That's going to ruin the patch, get the patch crooked on the hat, and oftentimes leave a lot of glue smeared onto the hat. I do see a lot of people use this thermal tape. I've tried it a million different ways. Me personally, I hate it. I don't recommend it. For me personally, when I'm using a dual platen hat press, I simply hold my patch in place on that bottom platen, and I let that heat come up from the bottom and activate the bottom side. However, we don't have that option here, so let me show you a different trick. Now that our Vevor hat press is up to temp, let me share with you our secret weapon. We've placed our hat patch over here on this small vise, and we're gonna go ahead and use something very simple like this cheap heat gun, and I'm gonna keep it on a low setting. I'm gonna hover over the top of this thermal adhesive, and you're gonna start to see that adhesive go from a matte finish to a real shiny finish. It almost bubbles up, and if you just want to double check it, you can even kind of touch it with your finger. As soon as it's tacky, you're going to be ready to move it over there and place it on your hat. Let's go and get to it. Now simply orient the patch where you want it and get it placed on the hat. That should hold it in place. Put your silicone pad over the top of it, and let's go ahead and give that a press down. The beeping clearly means that the time is up. Go ahead and release the tension from the clamshell. With the clamshell now in the upper position, go ahead and decompress that ball lever. That's going to allow you to remove your hat. And if all went well, you should have a beautiful looking hat that's pressed like this. These 6 panels, if you have too much pressure, it's going to leave a seam down the middle. You can see we had our pressure adjusted perfect. We do not have a seam down the middle. And guys, that is a UV printed patch. Do you see how that silicone pad protected the print on that? That's a perfect hat press. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this little Vevor 4-in-1 hat press certainly exceeded my expectations. Does this have some limitations? Absolutely. This is not some type of hat press that I would highly recommend a commercial shop go out and purchase, or somebody that's really aggressive and looking to break into the hat pressing business and scale their business up. This unit was really designed for the hobbyist or entry-level person looking to get into pressing some hats here and there. However, with that being said, I mentioned this earlier in the video, there are a couple third-party aftermarket companies that make some accessories for this, including a lower heated platen. You might want to check those out. I can't even tell you how many times I've been asked the question, Ryan, who makes the best hat press? And again, guys, is this the best hat press on the market when it comes to specs and features? Absolutely not. But who cares what kind of specs and features the top dog has if you can't afford it and you can't buy it and you can't start pressing hats and you can't get in the game? It's not the best. Many of you are on a budget, and I started out on a budget. So something like this is going to allow you to pick this thing up and start pressing hats and making money today. So a big thank you to Vevor for reaching out and sending us this hat press. On top of that, again, guys, I was not forced to say anything positive about this machine. This is my genuine review. Again, if you take the time and go through and set this thing up, adjust those wing nuts and get the clamshell adjusted accordingly, make sure you take out the gap behind your hat and you get your settings set correctly per the manufacturer. All of your leatherette manufacturers will have pressing instructions on their website. Make sure you look those up and write them down. And again, those are only a baseline setting. Now, another pro tip I want to share with you so you can get the most out of this Vevor hat press, I would highly recommend you get a temperature gauge. Sometimes these platens will say 300 on the readout, but they might be reading 310 or they might be reading 280. As long as you have access to a temp gun, you can go ahead and double check the settings and adjust accordingly. Once you have this thing calibrated to the factory settings for your leatherette, you're going to have a great time pressing hats. And here's a free bonus tip for you. Me personally, I don't like these lower platens. I struggle to get my hats placed on there, and I don't really like messing with a bunch of padding beneath it. Take a quick look at the Vevor website. They actually have a couple different models. They have a round beanbag. It's kind of like a ball. You can actually remove this whole entire lower platen, and you'll set that little beanbag right down inside of here, and you can still drop this clamshell down, but that beanbag is going to allow this hat to form to that shape. It's a really, really great alternative, and I know a couple people that own multiple Vevor 4-in-1 hat presses, and they run a business and they sell a lot of hats. So at the end of the day, my final verdict is going to be like my old race days. Run what you brung. If this is what you can afford, absolutely buy it. You saw me right here press a Richardson 112 with a UV printed leatherette patch, and it turned out just as good as it would have on my higher end hat press. I just had to spend a little bit more time on the setup and do a few tricks of the trade, and we made an amazing looking hat. So once again, big thank you to Vevor for sending this out. And if you guys want to know more information about the Vevor 4-in-1 hat press and maybe even purchase one, and you got any value out of this video, I will have a link to that down below in the description. And if you made it this far into the video, congratulations, you have much more patience than I do. But honestly, I would love to thank all of you, my loyal followers. I would not be able to have the opportunity to review these machines and build out the Rise and Grind workshop here on YouTube if it wasn't for you guys. So honestly, big thank you to you. And I would highly recommend drop a comment down below. I make these videos for you guys, and as you can see, when you ask for me to review products, we reach out to those companies, and a lot of times we're able to source these products and do reviews. I've been asked a million times to do a review on this Vevor hat press, so again, thank you to Vevor for sending this out. Highly impressed, and I recommend it. We'll catch you guys on the next video.